Thank you for calling in to the Action Figure Show podcast, the only toy collecting podcast where you get to be heard. What is on your mind tonight, Eric?
You got a great take because it really is almost like a what-if toy line.
I've acquired like about 130 Black Series. I picked up a few of those, retro collection, Mandalorian.
They're like, oh, I'm mad that Missy takes his helmet off. Oh, but Jango Fett took his mask off.
You cater to the SJWs. You love Kathleen Kennedy. Why don't you just marry her?
This is Smoky Mountain Hillbilly. I'm calling from the Great Smoky Mountains in Tennessee.
Now you have a voice with the Action Figure Call-In Show podcast. You can find it on Apple, Google, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. So take a listen and also call into the show. I don't know about you, but when I love a movie and I find out they're making a sequel for it, I get all excited. That's until I hear that it's straight to video or made for television. And then, it's not going to have any of the original cast and it's probably going to be horrible. So I thought today we'll look at 10 movies that you may not have known has a sequel. Now, some of these are made for television and really loosely can call it a sequel. It has nothing to do with the original, or at least if it has something to do with the original, maybe in the same world, has nothing to do with the same actors. It has none of the same actors in it because they couldn't afford them. Although, at least one of these I know has all the original cast members from the first one, and it's a horrible one there. So I figured we do 10 movies you may not have known had a sequel. And of course, you can tell me in the comments about American Psycho 2. How about the straight-to-video sequel to War Games 2.0? I mean, I didn't even want to look up to see what that one was about. How about the god-awful Ace Ventura Jr.? I've never seen it, but just looking at that kid makes me upset. And the Son of Mask. I mean, you got a lot of terrible, terrible movies, so finding 10 terrible ones was pretty easy. But we're not just talking terrible. Some of these might be good. It's just sequels that you didn't know were made to movies. So let's start with this one right here. A movie that this is actually a third one in the series of the Brady Bunch movies. Yeah. Did you know they made a third one? Everybody talks about the first two Brady Bunch movies. The first one was a comedy classic. Second one goes down a little bit, but it's still enjoyable and watchable. And the third one, the Brady Bunch in the White House. This is where they recast all the kids and didn't spend any time recasting them. Just picked any kid they could that maybe looked the part. Now, if you haven't seen the original Brady Bunch movie, I know a lot of people are like, ugh, Brady Bunch movie, I'm not watching that. You're missing some comedy gold. Now, it's really funny if you know the original show because they really pick on it good. There's a lot of details and stuff that you wouldn't pick up if you didn't know the show. I just wish they put Buddy Hinton. I just wish they put Buddy Hinton in it. See, he could have taught me how to talk. Anyway, but and the guy that plays Mike Brady, Gary Cole, I think is his name. He's in Office Space. He's the boss on it. There's nothing. Every time he's in the scene, it's gonna be hilarious. And although him and Shelley Long did come back for this made-for-television third movie in the series, it's not worth watching. It's not looking up. It's horrible. Now, I'll be honest with you. I would love the first two, so I watched a little bit of this, maybe about an hour of it, maybe. It was god-awful. The kids have no chemistry. They really did good in the first two, picking the kids that look kind of like the Brady kids and could really act like them in a funny way. But this movie is just horrible. Even Gary Cole, or Gary Coleman. No, it's not Gary Coleman. That's that little guy. Okay, number 2. Did you know in 1994 they made a television sequel to one of Alfred Hitchcock's classics, The Birds? That's right, The Birds 2, Lands In. Ain't that a great name for it? Sounds like you're gonna get a free sweater when you watch it. But The Birds 2, did we really need a sequel 30, 40 years later to The Birds? No. And you didn't have, by this time, Alfred Hitchcock was way dead, so it wasn't like he was involved. Maybe if Alfred Hitchcock was still working on it and wanted to tell the stories of the sequel of The Bird, maybe I can understand. But The Birds 2? No. Now, if you didn't know, it's not on my list. They actually did a sequel to Psycho, and it was but I remember I liked it back then when I saw it, and it spun. I think we did like 4 of them all together. The second one seemed like it was okay. Probably not if I go back and watch it. Surely not as good as the classic. But we're talking The Birds, 1994 made-for-television movie. Now, this was a big well, big promoted. I remember this was all over the place. The Birds, the sequel of The Birds. Everybody, was TV guy, advertisements everywhere. They really promoted the heck out of this thing, The Bird. But, man, remember television movies? Do they even do television movies anymore? I don't think they do. I guess now the made-for-television movies are ones made for Netflix and Hulu and stuff. Okay, here's one that, I'll be honest, I didn't even know they made this one, and I'm glad I didn't know it. This one, I surprised me when I made the list. Another Midnight Run. Of course, it doesn't have any of the classic actors. It doesn't have Charles Grodin. You can't replace Charles Grodin. There's some people you can't replace. And, of course, it doesn't have Robert De Niro. If you've never seen Midnight Run, it's a great 80s classic comedy. Check it out. You've got to see it. Sadly, not enough people I know have seen it. To be honest, when it was at the movies, I guess I missed it or I was too young. I remember walking down to my local video store just looking at stuff to rent, and I saw Charles Grodin. What is this? A Charles Grodin movie that I've never seen? This isn't The Lonely Guy. So I picked it up, looked at the box, and I said, I got to get it. I mean, Charles Grodin, one of the funniest street men ever. So I got it. Got home, watched it, and loved it. It's a great movie. So if you haven't seen it, you really need to check it out. Charles Grodin, that's all you need to say. He's even good in the movie Clifford. I know, it's a stupid movie, and I laugh at it because of Charles Grodin. He just hates Martin Short so much, it makes me laugh. But that was 1994, another made-for-television movie called Another Midnight Run. Now, I don't know if they was going to set up a series, a TV show based on this film or not. That's usually what these made-for-TV movies are. They're hoping it's a big hit, that way they can turn it into a television show, but apparently it wasn't a hit. They never did anything else with it, and never even heard of it until now. Whew. Okay, so we got Another Midnight Run, and now here's the one that all the cast members came back, and a lot of you that watch my channel probably know this one, but I just wanted to bring it up. I had to bring it up because it's a sequel to one of my favorite movies. Yes, George Lucas's, one of George Lucas's best movies. We're talking More American Graffiti. Whoa. Now, for a long time, I thought this was made for television. I said, this has got to be made for television. Just crap. Every time you find a copy of it somewhere, it looks like crap. But nope, 1979, it was released in theaters. And from what I understand, the studio really was pressuring Lucas to do Another American Graffiti. I'm not sure if he directed or produced it. I should have looked it up. I'm going to say he just produced it. That he really didn't put his heart. He just put his name on it. It's horrible, but all the cast members come back. I mean, you got Opie Cunningham's back. You got the girl from Laverne and Shirley. You even got the guy that played in the first one. Oh man, I forget his name. I forget it. The cool kid. I can't believe I'm forgetting his name now. The cool kid, not Harrison Ford. The one that Harrison Ford had to race. What is that? How can I remember Bob Alfalfa, Harrison Ford's character? I'm drawing a blank on that guy's name. Oh, anyway. I've only seen him in American Graffiti, and he came back for American Graffiti 2. Now, they really didn't need this. At the end of American Graffiti, they should put a little bubble, show us what happened to all of them. So why did we need it? But we really didn't need it. It's horrible. Even Harrison Ford returns for a very small part. I mean, he's got a small part in the original. This one's even smaller. This is blinking. You might miss it. I think he plays a cop or something. But we got More American Graffiti. What a stupid name, too. You have to give him that stupid name. Number 6. Now, as you know, we all love Rocky Horror Picture Show. Okay, maybe not all of us. I don't understand what the love of Rocky Horror Picture Show is. I know you guys love it. Some of you guys, people out there, really love this. It's a cult classic, and I've tried to watch it. It makes my stomach hurt when I try to watch it. It looks horrible. I don't want to see singing in a movie. I don't like singing in music. There's very few movies where you get away with it. Come to think of it, I don't know if there's any musicals I like. It bothers me. I was like, where's the music coming from? Why do these people just start dancing? Just really, I guess if you had to pick a good musical, it might be Clam Bait. I mean, that might be the best musical of all times. But yeah, they made a sequel to Rocky Horror Picture Show. And it's not called a Rocky Horror Picture Show 2. That would be too obvious. It's called Shock Treatment. Shock Treatment. Because I guess you had to say, do you want to go see a sequel to Rocky Horror Picture Show? Or do you want to get a shock treatment? So I would pick a shock treatment. But not seeing this shock treatment. If it's a sequel to Rocky Horror Picture Show and I can't even watch it, I'm sure this one is even worse. And it has singing in it also. Now, if it's got Tim Curry in it, I might give it a chance because Tim Curry's great, man. Best Pennywise ever. Sorry, new Pennywise. You just don't do it. You're made to be creepy. No, Pennywise is great in the original It made for television, so you can do made for television right. Tim Curry was great in it because he looked like just a normal clown that kid would like. That new one looks all creepy and everything. You wouldn't ever, think he was a nice. Oh, don't get me started on that. Anyway, don't get me started. Here's another one I didn't know was released until I started doing this list. A sequel to a Kurt Russell movie. That's right, you heard me right. A sequel to a Kurt Russell movie called Backdraft 2. Yeah, if you went to see the movie Backdraft and you left there thinking, oh, I've got to know more about these characters. I've got to know more about these firefighters. I've got to see Backdraft 2. Well, you don't have to see Backdraft 2. It doesn't have any of the same actors, and I don't even think they're playing the same characters. I think they're just firemen. Maybe they work at the same firehouse or something, but it's not a real... just one of those they slapped the name on. Backdraft 2. Come on, people. Here's another one based on a movie I didn't like the first one. This was one of the god-awful worst movies I've ever seen in my life. Yeah, I'm going to say it. This is a sequel to it. I don't know. Late 60s maybe they did a horror movie that people said was a horror movie. I thought it was a boring movie. It was the worst piece of crap I've ever seen in my life. It's probably my top 5 worst movies I've ever seen. And that's called Rosemarys Baby. I don't even know what was going on. It was slow, it was boring, it was horrible. Somebody told me it was the scariest movie they ever seen. I was like, what? What? Because there's a woman pregnant in it? That scared you? It was horrible. Few movies upset me so much, it makes me angry when I hear people like it. I just don't understand. Maybe I was too young when I saw it. I saw it when I was 4 years old and I hated it. Okay, I wasn't 4. I was a little older, I was a teenager, but I hated it. But they did a sequel in 1976 called Look What Happened to Rosemary's Baby. With a title like that, you know it's gonna suck. Sometimes you can tell a movie's not gonna be good by the name of it. Like I went to the video store to rent a horror movie one time. Me and my friend Boy was looking through movies to get. He didn't supposed to watch horror movies, so we wanted to make sure we got something really good. But we picked a movie by the name we shouldn't have, and it was called I Spit on Your Grave. Talk about a bad movie. And for Boyd, who wasn't used to watching horror movies, we went a little extreme when we shouldn't have. I Spit on Your Grave. I think they actually made a remake of that. Why? I'll never know. I Spit on Your Grave. Well, we're talking about Rosemarys Baby. Look what happened to Rosemary's Baby. I don't want to know what happened to Rosemary's Baby. I don't care. I was hoping Rosemary would get an abortion at the end of the movie or something. I shouldn't have said that word. Now I'm going to get demonetized. Here's a kind of sequel, but it got released. They dropped it as a sequel and they redid it. So it's kind of a sequel and kind of not of a sequel. One of the most classic comedies in the 80s is Cannonball Run. The first one was great. The second one's kind of stupid. But there was kind of a Cannonball Run 3. Cannonball Run 3. Can you believe that? Kind of was a Cannonball Run 3. Although the name was called Speed Zone, although you buy the Japanese Laserdisc, it says Cannonball Run 3 Speed Zone on the disc, not when you watch the movie. And I think there are actually some references to Cannonball Run during this. Why they changed the name, I could have looked up to find out why. I don't know. Either way, it flopped. Nobody cared. Nobody went to see it. It's hot garbage from what I remember seeing a little bit of it. Like most of the movies on this list, there's a reason why we don't know about them and talk about them, because they're garbage. Ugh. Let's see here. One of Tom Hanks' classic comedies is, of course, a movie from the 80s. It's got John Candy in it, and we're talking about Splash. That's right. Spickety splash. It's time to get your feet wet. We're talking Splash. And they made a sequel. That's right. Yep. Tom Hanks didn't show up. John Candy didn't show up. Daryl Hannah didn't show up. I don't think anyone showed up to even watch the movie. Of course, it was made for television. Splash 2! Here's something I'll tell you. I've never seen Splash. Not the first one. Not even the second one. Just never cared to see it. I know it's a comedy classic and I might like it. Just as a kid in the 80s, there's nothing I cared about. It didn't look like anything appealing to me. And then I got older, I just never got around to it. I know I should watch it. But I'm not going to watch Splash 2. No, not gonna do it. Not gonna happen. No. Okay, number one is based on what is a great comedy. It's a sequel to one of the greatest comedies, or at least, be honest, it was a great comedy. I don't know if it still is. And we're talking a sequel to Steve Martin's classic, The Jerk. I know, I was hoping to see The Man with Two Brains, and they could call it The Man with Three Brains. See how they do it as a sequel? I hate when they do that. But yes, it was a sequel to The Jerk. Now, I loved The Jerk growing up, at least the first half. I love that, the gas station scene. I haven't watched it in years because I'm scared it's not going to hold up and I'm going to hate it. So I just want to have in my memory how much I love it and not even watch it anymore. But The Jerk is a comedy classic. I remember being real little and telling my grandma I wanted to see The Jerk. And she's like, who is it? Who's in it? And I said, oh, it's got Steve Martin in it. And I can remember my grandma, back then rolling her eyes thinking, well, that's a good name for a movie with Steve Martin in it. I guess she didn't like Steve Martin. I guess she thought he was a jerk. But if you grew up in my time period, Steve Martin was comedy god. Put an arrow through his head. You'd laugh for hours at that. Oh, what about when he said, excuse me? Man, that would just make you die laughing. King Tut, one of the funniest songs ever. Oh, man. Anyway, they did a sequel called The Jerk 2, made for television, and Steve Martin went in it, and they had a new guy playing The Jerk. And I don't know who this guy was. I could have looked up his name, but when I see him, I know him as the guy that acted like he was Zach's dad on Saved by the Bell. That time he was trying to butter up to Mr. Belding or something. I don't know. He didn't want to get suspended or something. So he hired this actor that was a waiter at the Max or something to go act like his dad for a teacher parents conference. And he hired this guy, but then his plan all fell apart. And at the end, he learned something from his misadventures. I don't know. But The Jerk 2. Can you believe it? A Jerk 2. Come on, please tell me it didn't happen. But it did happen. I'm sorry, but it did. Let me know in the comments below some sequels that maybe the rest of us don't know. Have a lot of fun reading those. And as always, subscribe to the channel. Thumb up so you like my content. And we will talk again soon.
Hey, Junkman channel popping though.
Thank you, sir, for that unsolicited testimony.